Welcome back. I'm Michael Stamatinos, your host with the Advancing Healthcare Innovation Show. And if you're new to us, we're super excited to have you here. And we also happen to be crazy passionate around healthcare innovation and adoption, as well as access to care and leadership. And if this is your first time tuning in, let me tell you just a little bit about what we do here. So we're a healthcare innovation company. We're focused on bringing real stories within the healthcare to life of real people that are truly innovating in our space, and we give them the platform to just share their stories with the world, with our audience. And look, we've got an action-packed year planned with a bunch of new content, some incredible interviews that have already been planned. And if you haven't done so already, make sure you check out some historical interviews. And for any new ones that are coming out, hit subscribe now so stuff can come right over to you. So without further ado, I'm actually really excited about our guest today. We have Dr. Samir Ather, who's the co-founder and CEO of XpertDox, also an adjunct faculty member at the University of Alabama at Birmingham, and a staff cardiologist at Birmingham VA Medical Center. Dr. Ather, welcome to the show.
Hey, Michael, it's good to be on this show and share our thoughts and our story and the journey so far.
Yeah, I've given people a little bit of sort of your background in terms of the appointments that you have, but would you mind maybe just sharing a little bit of the journey of how XpertDox came to come about, some of the problems that you're solving and going into there, and we can dig in a little bit more thereafter.
Sure, absolutely. Happy to share that story. It's been a roller coaster of a ride over the last many years, but our journey started in the space of rare diseases, where we found that patients who had rare diseases or uncommon diseases needed a true specialist to care for them. You see, if you have diabetes, you can find plenty of physicians who can take care of diabetes, right? If you have high blood pressure, you can find physicians who can take care of high blood pressure. But if you have a rare condition, your run-of-the-mill cardiologist or endocrinologist may not be able to handle it, and you want to go to a physician who has dealt with many patients like you. But rare diseases being rare, it's difficult to find those physicians. And at the time, some of the websites that were basically doing Google reviews of physicians did not really inform the patient or the family member on how to find one physician who specializes in their disorder. So we started off from the perspective of big data analytics, and we decided that to truly find a physician who can take care of a patient with rare disease, they have to have some research experience in the space of their condition. They should be running some clinical trials. As we know, many treatments for rare disease are still experimental. So they should be doing some clinical trials in the space of the rare disease that a patient is looking for. And last but not the least, they should have cared clinically for the patients which look like the person who's looking for that physician. And to do that, we process almost 28 million records on the research website called PubMed. Parsed, we got access, applied and got access to Medicare's database of patients, processed that, and many other such databases to enable a patient with rare disease to find a physician for themselves. That was the beginning of the story. And from there on, we moved on to enroll patients for clinical trials. And as we developed this expertise in natural language processing and big data analytics, we found a need where the physicians were spending too much time coding for patient, after the patient visit. That was taking time away from the patients. And we decided to focus our energy on that particular aspect, which is after the visit is over, how can we send that claim to the insurance companies for the payers to get paid, or for the physicians to get paid.
So it seems like the journey going from what you were doing to maneuvering into sort of autonomous coding wasn't too far of a stretch, because it sounds like, fundamentally the NLP was just doing a different job, but it was already kind of analyzing things to begin with.
Absolutely. And I think everything you do in life is sort of a learning experience. None of that, we have not given up any of those other aspects of our business. We still care for patients with rare diseases. We still have plenty of patients who visit our website to find physicians for their disease. We still have clinical trial platforms with which we work with the Cancer Center at Stanford, University of Alabama at Birmingham, also Lifespan Hospital System, which is the academic hospital system of Brown University. So we have, we're still working on all of those pieces, but we're trying to bring everything all together.
So what, in terms of innovation, and the last couple of years have been really interesting, how have you kind of evolved in terms of how you and the team are innovating?
So I do think that innovation comes in steps, right? You don't just make a big jump. It's always an incremental journey. So when you reach the final, I should not say the final stop because we're still learning, but where we are right now and a year back, there's been a big jump. But each of those days, weeks, and months have been an incremental progress. Our innovation, the innovation that we think that we bring to the table is that we have processed more than a few dozen databases, each one of them with few 100,000 to 1 million plus points of data, totaling a few billion data points. And we have been able to connect all of those databases together. To just give you a perspective, Michael, healthcare is interesting. It's pretty, it doesn't, we do a lot of innovation when it comes to biomedical research and coming up with drugs and procedures and devices, but not a lot of innovation when it comes to just where our healthcare records reside and how they're handled. We have multiple terminology, how we name a disease, from ICD-9 to ICD-10, Snowman, and all those. How do we define a procedure? How do we structure certain things? So our innovation is our ability to connect all of those different databases, connect the physicians to diseases, diseases to drugs, drugs to procedures, procedures back to our payers and the hospital. So we have been able to build this vast meta thesaurus internally. And that helps us in not only connecting patients with clinical trials, but also mapping, extracting valuable information from unstructured data, that is a physician typing in their notes and extracting valuable information from that particular node. So the innovation is incremental, but if you look at it in totality, it's a pretty significant progress.
So if you were to kind of pinpoint one or two of the biggest strides that you've made over the course of the past year, how would you describe those?
I believe the biggest strides we have made over the last year has been our ability to not only process these vast databases, but our compatibility and integrations with multiple EHRs, where we are able to extract information, structure that in a way that is required, and to be able to bring them back into the EHR. Now, we all talk about healthcare interoperability and the HITECH Act, which is supposed to connect all the EHRs and all the vendors and all the clients, everything together. But it still remains a dream that has not been realized yet. So things still remain quite fragmented. If your other listeners have worked in the space, they would realize, and they probably already know, that the data structures remain very fractured. And so the biggest progress we have made is to efficiently extract that information, process that information, and post it back into the EHRs.
So initially when you started, what was the timeline? Taking, an example of a certain number of records would take normally 6 weeks. Have you gone from like 6 weeks, 6 days, 6 hours, 6 minutes? Like, are you talking that type of vast incremental improvement?
Right. At this point, we have an ability to process more than 20,000 charts in a single day. And the way we are setting it up is that could increase to any number of charts in a given day. But initially, we were able to only process a few hundred claims a day. So we are not talking about being able to process millions of records in a year.
Wow. So let's talk a little bit about the problem. I know that we were having conversations around the autonomous coding. How much time normally do providers generally take when it comes to coding? Is this something that they do, or are they relying on the?
There,
I mean, I know that there's certified coders and things of that. I mean, give us a little bit of the landscape in terms of where things are today and where some of the gaps are and how you guys are filling those gaps.
So medical coding also is not a streamlined process, Michael. In some places, the providers themselves select the appropriate codes that need to be sent to the insurance company. In other places, providers may insert limited number of codes, and rest of them are supplemented by a coding team. And in the last batch, I would put some clinics and hospitals where providers do not do any coding, and it's all outsourced to a coding team. And the coding team itself can be both in-house and can be outsourced to a third-party company. There are multiple problems that happen during this process. It's first of all inefficient to ask a physician. I'm a physician, but I know that my ability to code charts accurately is quite limited because my training is taking care of the patients, not to code a chart and send it to the insurance company. So the accuracy would be a bit limited, and it's a wastage of time to ask a provider to be putting codes in. And the outsourced team, the results and accuracy is not very homogeneous. You get a lot of heterogeneity when you ask one coder versus the other coder to chart or put the codes for the same claim. So it's very heterogeneous. It's inefficient, takes 7 to 10 days on an average to send out a claim, which means the hospitals are left to foot the bill and not get paid for many weeks before the money comes into them. And the last part of it is the variability in practices. Some practices are very seasonal. We all know that this year has been pretty rough for kids with upper respiratory infections. And that means there are a lot more claims going in. We had COVID when there was a huge surge or multiple waves of COVID. The claim volume goes up, but the number of people who are doing the job remain constant. We have seen places where there were 30 days behind, 45 days behind in sending out a claim to get paid, and they were basically going under just because they could not process the claims. And then sometimes there's a low volume for some surgeries and some even urgent care. Summertime, maybe a low volume. And at that time, there's surplus coding staff, which is also inefficient. And in this day and age, we all have seen news coming in, multiple hospitals posting significant losses in 2022.
Yeah.
So every inefficiency counts for the bottom line of these hospitals and clinics.
Well, there's a lot of myths around, autonomous AI. Are there any that come to mind that you feel like would be worth debunking?
Yeah. So, Michael, I don't know if I shared with you or not, but during my PhD, I did work significantly on machine learning and have used multiple methods of machine learning, right from decision trees to neural networks and other frequency-based ARIMA models. AI may or may not be a great fit for every solution. Its scope remains narrow. It has to be applied correctly. It has to be trained to make sure that it is doing what it's supposed to do. It cannot just be left alone to do, AI we as humans have a huge capacity to absorb multiple inputs from different, from the claim, from the EHR, and to come up with codes. A machine would only look at things it's told to look at, and to come out with codes it's supposed to look at. So there's significant training and supervision required, at least in the implementation that we are talking about, which is the ability to analyze claim and code it appropriately. Now, machine learning has been very well utilized to identify a face algorithms, but that may not be applicable to every problem. Every problem will need its own solution.
That's right. So in terms of scope of usage, you're saying that you need to clearly define what it's going to be used for, and it's not the end all panacea to everything. Any other myths that you think are worth, highlighting?
Um, I do think that AI has, I do think that AI, what we understand about AI is also a little bit of a myth. It is somehow thinking on its own and is coming up with ideas. We all have heard about ChatGPT and other such solutions. In a sense, many of these AI algorithms are looking at references and the data warehouse, that's their input. Now, if the input is wrong, they have no way to put some sort of a verification there to not come up with that wrong output. I think it's a myth that it's thinking, at least till this point. Who knows, maybe in 5 years they'll start thinking.
Mm-hmm.
But at this time, they are absolutely great in gathering data, parsing through data, structuring through data, identifying what is it that the user is looking for, and outputting the information in a structured format that is useful for the end user. So I would say there are great processes right now for extracting, structuring, parsing, and outputting a certain in a certain format, rather than a human brain which is literally thinking and coming up with abstract ideas. Right? We sit under the sun. We are coming up with ideas without any input, and AI is not sitting idle and coming up with new ideas.
So let me ask you a question. You mentioned earlier about a scenario where maybe it was a practice, or I forgot what you mentioned, but it was a practice or a hospital. They were significantly behind. When do they reach out to you? When do they say, "Hey, Dr. Ather, we need your help"? Is it generally when they're underwater and they know they're behind, and they know that that lag in terms of the turnaround from getting a claim submitted, they need to reduce that? What is the major problem that they're having that they then say, yeah, maybe this needs to be done by some form of technology? And then also to add to that is what is the argument that you guys use? Because I'm assuming that likely people are going to say, well, am I going to lose my role as a result of this? How do you combat that? Because I know there's a lot of that's going on now. So yeah, just maybe comment on those.
So Michael, I believe every person that we have spoken with has a different set of problems and priorities. Again, without specifying any particular entity, there are entities which are growth oriented. They want to expand, they want to grow fast. And what they have realized is growing fast entails growing all the teams along with it. It is not just hiring a physician or opening a new building, it's they have to hire every aspect of the practice. If they can have a solution that is scalable at the turn of the key, like, if they open a new hospital and there is already a coding that will expand with it without hiring new people, that's a big asset for them. So growth and scalability can be a big ask from a client. Then there are clients who are struggling with their bottom line, where the cost of coding, because it's inefficient, because it's seasonal, and given that we know how the job market has been so tight in 2022, that it's affecting their bottom line, and they want to have a solution which can help them with their bottom line. Now, a delay in submitting claims is also in the same inefficiency of manual coding, which is it is seasonal variation, and they're stuck with those claims in winter months if it's an urgent care, and they have surplus staff in the summer. So bottom line, it could be a reason for a set of clients. Growth and scalability could be for somebody else. We've also seen a third set of potential users who just want to be on the forefront of innovation. They see and they know that one day these technologies may become mainstream, and they don't want to be trailing at that point. They want to be trailblazers. And so we have met at least a few such entities who, if they see a new technology and they believe in it, and we always do a pilot with each of these entities, and if they see that this is working, they would rather try it than anybody else. So I would categorize them into three different groups. Growth-related companies, very sort of cost-sensitive entities who are looking at the bottom line, and the third would be innovators.
So in terms of innovating within XpertDox, where do you see yourselves within the next year? What would make you feel, if you were to kind of, to say fast forward a year from now, we're having this discussion and we're looking back, what needs to happen from an innovation standpoint in order for you to feel satisfied with the trajectory of the company?
I think it's going back to our roots. That would be the next big thing for us. That's what we are looking at by the end of this year, is take all of this medical coding that we are doing and the clinical trial that we are doing for patients with common and uncommon diseases, and combine all of these together to not only help in the medical coding process, but connect all these patients with the appropriate clinical trials going on. And that would be going back to our roots. And that's what we intend to do by the end of this year.
Pretty fantastic. Well, how can folks follow what you're doing, what XpertDox is doing? I guess what's the best way for them to kind of follow progress and follow your story?
We have a pretty active LinkedIn, both for XpertDox as a company and my own personal account that, Michael, you are so prolific on LinkedIn, so you know that. Other than that, our website would always put on any important news story or press release there that would be in there. But all in all, it's been a fantastic journey, Michael. We are excited, even if we stay even in the medical coding space, the kind of efficiency we are bringing. We all know that healthcare costs are huge, right? And in the end, it percolates down to the end user. If there's inefficiency, it's in the end, it's the patient paying for it. And if we can bring efficiency, if we can streamline the process, if we can code, we've all struggled when we have seen bills coming in which are not accurate, where the claims that have been put into the insurance company do not accurately identify what has been done to you as a patient. It's not a pleasant experience, right? First, you went through that illness, and then you get a bill which is not accurate, and then you have to call someone. To be able to accurately, efficiently submit those claims, we think that we are helping the providers, the hospitals, the patients, and I think we would be happy even if we continue to grow in the same area.
Wonderful. Well, Dr. Ather, really appreciate you coming on today. And for those that are tuning in and listening, if you found this content helpful for you, would you mind sharing it on your social media with your network, or even commenting, liking it? I'm just very grateful when we can bring guests on that are doing innovative things, that are advancing healthcare forward, driving out inefficiencies, improving access, all the things that we know, like, and care about. And yeah, Dr. Ather, it's been a pleasure having you on, and looking forward to having you come on again and letting us know a little bit more about how you guys have evolved over time. So catch up with you soon.
Absolutely, Michael. Thank you for having me here.
You bet.